the time has come. It's now 8 o'clock. So I'd like to open up by saying my name's Tony Kell. I'm the vice chairman of the events team. Jackie's away on holidays, so she's left it with me for this evening. And I'd like to say, wherever you are in the world, whether it's morning, evening, or afternoon or night, welcome. Thank you for joining us. I believe there's over 100 people have booked to come tonight, including quite a few non-members as well. This is our 10th Evening With session, and it was as a result of a suggestion by the members that we started these to try and introduce ourselves and everybody else to each other so we could pick each other's brains for things. And it's been very successful so far. And again, as a result of which, we've had quite a few new members. The first thing I have to tell you is that the session is being recorded. That's video and audio. So if you don't want to be seen on the video, you can switch your video off. Usually on the bottom left-hand side of the screen it's got stop video. So if you press the stop video, your video is no longer visible to the recording session. But if you're happy with it to stay on, you can do. We'd like all of you to remain muted with the exception of the 4 people that you can see in the centre of your screen now. That's myself, Jeff Godin, no. Thomas Hoy, and Colin French.
Hi all.
If you want to ask a question at any time during the show, please do so, but by means of the chat box. If you look at the bottom centre of your screen, there's a thing that says chat. If you click on that, it brings up like a little text box on the screen. You can type in there, you can send it to everybody, and then we can all see what the question is that you're asking. We may not ask that question immediately, but during the course of the show, we'll try to get them all. And Jeff's going to try to keep me in my place and make sure I don't miss any. Finally, Zoom has a number of different views. But what I've done is I've arranged to spotlight the main people here. Of course, the main people being Colin and Thomas, who are going to answer us questions. Yeah. The aim is to finish about 9:30, at which point we will start to wind the session up and perhaps allow you to unmute yourselves to speak directly. But firstly, as I say, welcome Colin and Thomas. We've got a few questions to kick it off, but don't forget, if any of you have got any questions, please bring them up on chat. So I'll start off with you then, Colin, if that's all right.
Yeah.
One of the questions is on the Wagon Works layout. What made you install a Wagon turntable?
Well, that's a long story, really. I'll try and keep it brief. I was born in a railway town in a railway house. And as we lived with grandparents, we moved next door when that became vacant to what was the schoolmaster's house. And it had a very long garden that went down to the boundary of Wolverton Works. And on the left-hand side of the garden was the goods shed, which ran at right angles to the main goods roads. And it was served by 2 wagon turntables. And I could see the operation of this from the back of my garden, in actual fact, from the top of the apple tree, to be perfectly honest. It was done by horses down at Wolverton. And I was just fascinated by the operation of it and decided I'd like to incorporate something. Then metalsmiths brought out their wagon turntable, and I thought, ah, yes, well, here we are. This is the ideal sort of platform to use. And that's what I did it.
Excellent. Now, I know that you've supplied me with some pictures to show how you actually operated the wagons on it. So what I'll do is I'll share the screen and I'll bring up those diagrams, if that's all right, Colin.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah.
Now, can everybody see that? All right?
Yes.
I hope you can. When it works, it's coming up slowly. It's steam driven is my computer, so these things take a little bit of time. I did have it all set up before, didn't I? Honest.
That's the one. I know.
Well, we've got that one. That picture's working.
Yeah, but that's Leadsom Street Yard.
Aha, here we go. How the
Yeah.
wagon turntable works. Do you want to talk us through that then, Colin?
Well, yes. Now I do the shunting on the wagon works with the locomotive. Now, as I say, that didn't happen on the goods shed at Wolverton, but in Wolverton Works itself, there was one wagon turntable in the whole of the works which served the sawmill. And that's there that they actually operated the pulling the wagons in and out of where they used to load the sawdust up, I think it was, into the wagons with the work shunter. And it was due to strategically placed capstans. Now, the capstans I use on the layout are all Andy Duncan's castings. I mount them on the sleeper so they're the right height. And I use the coupling hook on the loco and the coupling hook on the wagons. And if you can see the 4 sort of black dots there, that's where the capstans are placed. And if you've got a wagon on the turntable and you want to pull it into the dead end siding at the top there, they're the sort of capstan you use. So you want a fairly lengthy piece. In my case, I use a bit of chain that I got from Phoenix Models with a sort of link soldered on each end. And you gently move the loco backwards, and that will, with a little bit of luck, pull the wagon right into that siding. So that's how that works. If you've got any questions on that, please let's have them.
And there's the other photograph of you drawing it backwards again.
That's the other way. If you're pulling the wagon out onto the turntable, then they're the 2 capstans you use, and that's where you thread the chain or rope or whatever you use. And I say they did use a loco in that one wagon turntable within Wolverton Works, and that's how they did it.
Yeah. If I can make an observation, if very early stations, and I'm thinking of Wareham in Dorset, where the goods shed A has been preserved, but B is the original. Often it was at right angles to the siding layout, because effectively they were using the turntables to get the wagons into the yard, into the goods shed. Early on, it was quite common, wasn't it, to service a goods shed via a turntable.
That's how it was at Wolverton, you see, that the sidings, the main sidings ran parallel with the works, and the goods shed was at right angles to those. And that's they had 2 turntables because they had 2 roads running up to it.
Yeah. I think another example is the Bodmin and Weybridge, which of course is dead ancient. They had a few turntables to shove the wagons into the appropriate warehouse.
Yeah. I did see, well, I've got it somewhere, a video, and I think it's called LMS Freight 1935. I think that's the title of it. And the first part of it is Camden Goods Depot in London. And each of the roads is served by a wagon turntable, but they're electrically sort of operated, and the capstan's electrically operated. You'll see the shunter wrap his rope round them vigorously and then stamp on a sort of switch type thing in the floor, and round it goes. There's another one at Paddington, I think, and with a bit of rope, he's pulling about 6 wagons along with it. So it was quite common, as you say, all over the place.
Well, thank you for that, Colin. There's a gentleman who sent me an email to ask a question. Do you run your layouts at home? Do you, Colin?
I do. I do play with my train set at home. My various ones. I don't know if you can see them behind me, but they're all stacked up. You see, I'm confined to the little spare bedroom. The domestic authorities aren't very understanding in this particular local authority of where I live. The councillors downstairs, and I'm confined to the small bedroom now. All the daughters have married and left home. This is my domain here, so I build all the layouts with a frame at one end so they can all stand on their end. And behind me, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stacked up there. Another one on its end here. I've got 2 more down there on their end, and I've got one on the table. So that's how I do them. So they all stack, and I do get them out occasionally. And I've got the smallest one on the table at the moment. I don't know if I move the computer, you can see it. But that's the 25.5-inch one. I don't know. There we are. That was my last lockdown layout. I'll call it my LLL, my lockdown laptop layout. 25.5 inches long, and it's called Clammy-DOS treacle works, because I do take my railway modelling very seriously.
Of course you do, yes. Thomas, I can see that you've got yours in your room behind you there.
Well, this is the dining room, as I couldn't quite angle everything so you could see it. I usually run my layout in my bedroom or in the spare room that we have. When it's in my bedroom, it goes right up against my bed, and it goes from the wall to the chest of drawers, and you can't walk around at all. So I tend to now have it set up in the spare bedroom, and for a couple of days, leave it up, play a bit, take it down, and then it lives in my wardrobe when it's not in use. It doesn't come out too often because I do lots of different things. I'm usually building models or doing some model engineering. So yes, I do run them.
So
I do run it very often.
Would you say that your main interest then is designing the thought process behind it and then building the things rather than actually running them all the time?
It is now. Previously, when I was younger, it was all about operating the layouts and driving the trains. But now I get much more enjoyment from making the models, researching, designing, working out how to make the crane, for example, work. I'm currently working on a steam crane engine, which is a loco with a crane mounted on it. That's a project I'm slowly working on.
Which brings us to the subject of how do you actually make your crane operate? Because I'm watching the video of you loading and unloading on that wagon using the crane. How do you make the crane operate?
So I have a controller which simply has up and down for the chain, which will make it go up and down.
And we can see it happening in the background there.
Yes, anti-clockwise and clockwise. If it wants to do clockwise, there we go. That's how I tend to control it. How I've wired it up is ridiculously complicated for what it is. In hindsight, I should have done it a lot simpler. But what it's doing, it is connected to the track circuit as it's a DCC layout. It runs into a locomotive decoder, and then on the decoder, function 1 changes a relay, which selects the chain motor, which is mounted on the coil, or the 360 degrees motor, which is mounted under the layout. Tony, there is I think I sent you a picture.
There is, yes.
Diagram of how it's roughly built. It's essentially a heavily modified Pico kit. Several parts I've had to modify. I've added lead weights onto the back because I messed up while building it, and put the pickups at the back. And when I first tested it, lifted something up, it stopped the pickup. It stopped the contact, and it wouldn't work no more.
Oh dear. Just waiting for this to come up. Yes, there we
this
are.
One. So you can see the round base of the crane that is on the baseboard height. There is a 3D printed motor holder underneath, which is the baseboard to the right. That holds the motor in there and stops it from rotating. The center shaft, which is on top of the round base, that's made out of brass, which was turned on my friend's lathe back when I didn't have a lathe. And then there's a little connector, which was also turned on a lathe and fits perfectly onto the motor and onto the shaft. That's essentially all the electronics of how it's done. In hindsight, I should have just had 2 wires going to a controller like this to the crane itself, because I've got it running through the computer to run it on this controller. So if the computer ever dies, I don't have a crane to operate. Although I can do it on the hand controller.
Well, I'm going to stop sharing at that point there so we can see you again. That's so. Is your whole layout DCC operated then, Thomas?
Yes. Everything's DCC. All the points are operated with servers. I have a Raspberry Pi which controls the points and can operate the crane from it. All the locos have sound decoders, and I can control it with my phone using Wii Throttle. So I can toot the whistle. I don't know if you're here, but we'll give it a go. There's the whistle in the background.
Oh, yes.
And I can also change the points using the web server. No, it's there. So you can see all the red lights, and you just tap on it and it changes the points in the background. You'll have to take my word for it because I can't move the laptop at the minute.
That's all right. Yes, thank you very much, Thomas. No Obviously, problem. Very sophisticated, and I take it that the technology is something that you're very interested in as well, then.
Yes, it's JMRI, which is the software which runs the layout, and then it's a little bit of program coding, writing scripts to operate the crane via the computer.
Right. And Colin, is yours DCC or analog controlled?
Both.
Both?
Well, yes, they're all wired up so they can be used with an analog or DCC controller. The reason being that just recently, I'm not an expert on this by any way, shape or form. I'm very much a sort of beginner on this. But I like to have sound in the locos. Now, I've been converted into having sound in the locos, which I do. But some of my locos, there are no sound modules that are appropriate. I like the locos to sound right. For instance, I've got one that I've built, which is a model of one of the Webb special tanks that used to operate in Wolverton Works. And there is nobody yet does a sound module that's anywhere near like that loco. That a very distinctive sort of sound. So I'll still run that on analog. But the other, like the industrial locos I've got, they're all DCC. I've got a Fowler diesel on that little layout there at the moment, and that's all sound. And so yes, I would do both. If I'm using DCC, it's very simple. I use a Bachmann AZ. Hang on a minute, I'll see what it's called.
The basic one.
Oh yes, Bachmann EZ Command Control. That was recommended to me by Coastal in Ipswich here, and that's what he told me to use. That's worked very well with the small motors I use in the locos. And for the analog, I use what I've always used, and that's the combi little controller. They're so cheap. I used to buy one for each layout and have it on there permanently.
What, like a duet type thing?
No, it's just a single sort of. I'll get them out. They're all in boxes here somewhere. So that's the see that? That's the combi, yeah. I'm not holding it up very well, am I?
You lift it up to your nose.
Oh, there we are.
There we go, yes.
That's it. There we are.
We'll see that now.
Yeah. And
And
I
is that a CD unit that's fixed at the top of it?
No, it's got its own special, it's got its own transformer, which is a wall plug.
Yeah.
And then that just fits in the controller, so you can hold it handheld or fixed. I normally fix them on the layout with a bit of adhesive Velcro.
Okay. Don't forget, if anybody who's watching has got any questions for Colin or Thomas about their layouts or how they operate them or why they make them or anything like that, please just get on that chat and text them through to us, and then we'll all see what questions there are, because I'm sure there must be thousands of questions going through your minds about how they go about building the layouts. Obviously, small layouts are very, very popular because we don't all have enormous barns to build our layouts in. I've built some small ones and some fairly large ones over the years. And so what started you on the concept of building a smallish layout then, Thomas?
Well, it started when I got into O-Gauge. I've been out with the club's O-Gauge layout, Helpfate and Chapel Lane, a couple of times. John, the president of the Gauge O Guild, sat me down and I made a low Mac wagon. Then I decided that I wanted to build a loco, which I built the J79. And after I had built the tram engine after that, I decided that, well, I've got to have somewhere to run them. And I got a load of wallpaper, laid it out, worked out a size of what I wanted. I originally wanted a 10-foot layout, but then I realised I couldn't transport it and I couldn't set it up in my bedroom, so it was a no-no. Back then I had a Ford KA, so it had to be a small layout. And after going to a show with a bring and buy stand, I found the freeway point, and it just sort of all worked out. It had the two sidings that I wanted and the turnaround, so I had that operation. And that's just how it came about. It just fitted all my needs, and everyone's different, so everyone has sort of.
So you say you started the design, but on the back of a roll of wallpaper, is that right?
Yes, laid it out, printed off Pico point templates. I printed off way too many than I needed, but it was nice to play around with everything to see what I could do. And
which DCC system do you actually use then, Thomas?
I use the lens system, currently using the 101 controller, which is on the layout at the minute at the back. Looks like that. Although I tend to use the app more than anything, but you still can drive trains and toot whistles, he says.
He says. And which DC system do you use then, Colin?
Yeah, mine's the. I'll get it off.
Oh, you did say the easy.
Yeah, but
I do apologise. Yes, it's just somebody had asked. So
now you've told me where to hold it. That's what I use.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Backman EZ command. As I say, that was recommended to me by Coastal DCC in Ipswich, who do all my sound chips for me and that sort of thing. So that's what I use.
Have either of you thought about using radio control to operate your locos?
I've never thought about using it for an O-Gauge layout. Personally, I have debated making road vehicles, and they would be RC. To me, the traditional method works quite well, and I put stay alives in all of my locos, so even if you get a bit of dirt on the track, it just carries on running.
Mm.
So personally, for me, RC is not something I would consider.
What about you, Colin?
Short answer, no.
Well, it's succinct.
I'm just getting my head around this.
Now I know that Colin has built a variety of different micro layouts, including layouts inside of filing boxes, haven't you? You know.
Yeah.
Yes. What do you normally use to construct your layouts from? Do you use birch ply or what is it?
No, very traditional sort of thing. Well, again, going back to years ago when I used to work for a living, regularly they used to take down notice boards and put new ones up, and then the old notice boards were going in skips, and that was pretty good MDF. So I borrowed it, sort of thing, took it into protective custody, I think the word is. And then I use sort of 2B1 softwood into the old traditional way. We've been doing it for years. So I
think they call it upcycling these days, don't they?
That's right, yes. Yes, not taking it into protective custody. No. So yes, mine's very traditional, 2B1 frame, square about every foot, and then with this sun dealer type board on top.
What about you, Thomas? How do you build your baseboards?
Well, when I built these, I was 16. I didn't have a lot of money. So when my family got rid of a bed, they had nice wooden struts that hold the mattress in place, and they so happened to all be the right size. So that's where they came about. The actual wood on the base of the layout itself is MDF, and they so happen to be offcuts from a project that we were doing around the house at the time. So that's how I did it originally. If I was going to do it again, I would build up a 2x1 frame, as Colin said, but instead of laying wood straight across the layout, I would actually lay out specifically where the track is going to be. So that way you can have up and down much easier, and it's much lighter as well. These are only small, but they are quite a reasonable weight.
Yes.
And I know if I had done it like that now, it would have been a lot lighter.
And obviously you have more than one baseboard. How do you connect the two?
There is 3 baseboards in total. The 2 end ones are the same length, and they go on top of each other with a baseboard either side, and then that goes into the wardrobe like that. For transporting them to exhibitions, I have both of those together, and then the middle section sits on top using a subframe, and that fits in the car nicely. But it's only ever when I'm transporting it. It doesn't fit in the wardrobe otherwise.
What I was meaning was, how do you connect the boards together? Do you use bolts?
Oh, sorry. Yes, they've got wooden dowels between them just to roughly align them, and then it's bolts which have a little bit of slack, so you can align it depending if it's if it's moved slightly.
Have either of you ever used any rail or template to do the design of the layouts, or has it been pen and paper and things like that?
It's always been pen and paper for me. We have used it on the club's layout, but it's not I don't own the software, so I've never used it.
Okay, what about you, Colin?
Well, me and computers don't normally get on. So many years ago, Hornby used to produce little plastic bits of their track that used to be able to slot together. I think that was about a fraction of the size of the normal, and I've used those. But normally, I think it's the same as Thomas. Really, it's pen and paper, really. And I think the time you spend on designing the layout pays off, because I also got little bits of paper out for wagons and this, that, and the other, because there's no point in building a layout if, when you've done it, you can't operate it to your satisfaction, because it's a waste of my time and money. So time spent in planning is sort of paramount as far as I'm concerned.
Totally agree with you, Colin.
Somebody's asking, what sort of minimum radius do you use?
For me, I go down, on one of the layouts, I'll go down as far as, what is it, 2'4".
2'4".
Yeah, the reason I say that is because I've built one, which is my 3 holes depot, which was on the video for the last show.
That's right, yes.
That came about because I had some Riv Rossi track by me. I can't remember where I got it. I got it second hand from somewhere. And I thought, oh, let's chop that up and try it, because it was like a tramway type track. So, and that's down to about 2'4" radius, I think. And the Y6 goes round there a treat.
Excellent. And what about you? Do you have a minimum radius at all, Thomas?
I don't have enough of a curve, to be honest, with my layout to consider it. It is just the minimum radius of a Pico point, not the small one they did, the originals. That's what I based it on while I was
So do you use pico points or do you hand build them?
I have one pico point and one three-way point, which was scratch built by someone, which I purchased at a bring and buy stand, and had to heavily modify it to make it work properly.
Right. But you, Colin, you say you've scratch built some points as well, have you?
Yeah, I mean, on my on my original sort of small layout, which was 11'3" when I first started, that appeared in the first book on small layouts that the guild published. It was Valley Light Railway. There was 5 points on that, and I scratch built those. Yeah, and the Leadsom Street Yard, that was scratch built. And although all my current layouts are all pointless, I'm not averse to turnouts at all. In fact, I've got just under the computer, I've got a drawing of a Barry slit, which might get knocked together during the winter months for something to do and see where I could use that.
For my next layout, I would also attempt to make the track myself, just for a bit more of a challenge.
And what method would you use for track building? Would you use the copper clad, or would you go for sliding chairs onto rails and gluing them to sleepers?
The points I've built thus far have all been Pico Code 100 flat bottom, the 00 rail, you know, either industrial or sort of tramway, on copper clad. On Leadsom Street Yard, they were sort of built as a tramway track with a continuous check rail, so that had to be soldered up really. And certainly on that one I built originally with 5 turnouts on, that was soldered onto copper clad because there was nothing else about at the time. I have used Pico chairs on the Dock Green loco layout. The pits there are all made out of Pico chairs that have been slid onto the rail and then sort of cemented down onto longitudinal sleeper strip. The Pico plastic ones.
Thomas, which do you plan to use next then? Haven't you thought about that yet?
I have thought about it. If I do a standard gauge layout, it would be sliding chairs onto rails and making it proper because it looks more convincing. For my narrow gauge 014 layout that I'm working on in the background, I will be soldering rails to copper clad sleepers because it looks more like the real thing. They tended to use, I'm going to say pins, but they're ginormous.
I think the spikes, that's what they call them.
Spikes, that's the correct term, yes. So that would look more realistic for that. It all depends what the final look is that I'm going for.
All right, well, I'm going to hand over to Jeffrey for a minute or two, if that's all right, because I'm starting to get a bit dry. Have you got any questions you can ask Jeffrey?
Yeah, I've got a question here from Ian Major. I think he's concerned with the 2'4" radius that Colin puts in one part of his layout somewhere. What couplings do you use? I suspect, does he mean do you have to put extra links in or something? Or
no, standard 3 links.
Yeah. On a four-wheel truck, presumably.
Yeah. And on the smaller layouts, I tend to use it where I can 9-foot wheelbase wagon, so they're that little bit short. It's not much, but sometimes it's enough to sort of able to couple up and that sort of thing. I never use the screw couplings on the locos. I'll use the 3 links on the wagons. And,
they're often easier. Yeah,
I particularly don't have any fitted wagons, so you know I can get away with. Oh, just excuse me a moment. I'll just have my antivirus come up and say no browser threat spraying. So just get rid of that. Well, that's all right. I haven't done anything, right?
Okay.
So yes, 3 links couplings, and my coupling hook is stuck in the end of a paintbrush handle. So
yeah. But by and large, you're using sort of short locos and 4-wheel stock.
Yeah. So I've got nothing bigger. My largest loco, apart from the Wolverton Works shunter, which I mentioned earlier on, my largest loco is a Terrier.
Yeah. I mean, on my layout, which is much more of an oval, and I'm using Pico, the set track radius, whatever it is. I don't find I get any problems with combinations of four-wheel coaches, wagons, terriers. Buffers don't lock, and you can use the couplings. Yeah, that's fair enough. On yours, Thomas, your layout obviously is got much more generous radii, and you actually are using a longer four-wheel coach, aren't you?
Yes,
On your passenger train, but
yes, they're all 3-link couplings. To me, it's just more realistic.
yeah,
And I like the feel of it. My 5-inch gauge stuff outside is all 3-link couplings as well.
yeah.
They won't fit on that layout though, will they?
No, funny enough, not.
Yeah.
I've got a small bit of track in the garden that they fit quite well on.
Yeah, I mean, one advantage of a small layout, of course, it has to be said, is that your access over it is very good. So using 3-link couplings or screw couplings, you can almost get to all parts. Whereas obviously we're talking about a much bigger layout, then there are issues of sort of visibility and reach and light and all sorts that can come into play. But it tends not to be a problem in your size layouts.
No, but I still have a torch on my
to
make life easier.
Yeah.
And a very fine end as well. That usually helps.
Yeah, Thomas, when you graduate to trying to couple up bogey coaches with corridors, you definitely need torch, good light.
I have done that, and yes, we use 4 sets in the end because it's a pain. The coupling goes up. Yeah, I usually got that job on the club's layout at exhibitions. Funny enough.
Yeah, there's a question here from RJ Stevens. A modular layout. Yeah, is this picking up on? I think one of my friend John Hobden in Norfolk. They've developed some sort of modular layout, haven't they? Where they've each contributor sticks to a standard size board, and there are entry and exit positions of the track, usually in the middle, of course, if it's a single track, on each board. So you can actually literally plug together differently made boards in all sorts of, isn't it? What's the name of the thing? Didn't know it was in the carpet, so you had researched it. Fracking and something.
Oh,
like
yes.
I think it's got at least 3 modules at the moment, hasn't it? But I think they're going to extend it.
I think Tony Sparks has done the bridge in the middle, hasn't he? And John's done the 2 bits either end.
Yeah, I've seen a recent picture of a camping coach, so there may be yet a 4th bit. Yeah, that can be quite good fun for a club, can't it? Because it can give individuals things to do and take responsibility for. And they can do things at home, and yet they can bring it all together into a bigger layout.
Yes. It's not something I would consider personally. But I would like to extend workload, but I wouldn't do it modular personally. It's just my personal preference.
Yeah.
I certainly wouldn't do it because all my layouts are on a single baseboard with no baseboard joints. And if you saw my woodwork, you'd know the reason why.
You'd have big arguments with other people's woodwork, would you? Question from Cordejong is for you, Thomas. It's about your crane. Is that a standard Pico or?
Yes, it is a standard Pico kit that's been modified to work, and I've had to 3D print extra parts because I broke them while I was mucking around.
Oh yeah,
trying to make it work. It is a standard kit just with extra bits glued on.
Yeah, and I think Skytrex do a yard crane as well. But have you looked at it? Is that motorizable?
I didn't actually know Skytrex did one.
I think I've seen one there. Tony, correct me if I'm wrong. Do Skytrex do?
I don't know.
Oh, I think I've seen one on there. 2 years since I've seen an exhibition, of course, but I thought I did, but I could be wrong.
I would have to have a look. The Pico one would work would turn by it would turn. You could turn it by its hand, your hand, and it would work. That's why I chose it, and it was just something to start with instead of scratch building everything.
Yeah, I've got one, but I'm afraid mine is pretty static. Not as adventurous as you just yet. Thank you.
Well, you're absolutely right, Jeffrey. I've just Googled Skytrex crane kit and it's come up with a few pictures. Sadly, that's on a different computer, so I can't share them with you.
Tony, what might be an idea is to I think you've got some interesting views of Wopload. Maybe worth sharing those, and people may have some comments on what the content of the particular video is.
Actually, most of the photographs I've got are of Colin's different layouts.
All right.
I haven't got many pictures of Wopload at all, but I can share that with you. What I've got, if it'll work again. It seems to be taking a little while on this computer. Here we've got Bishop Lane Brewery. That's one of yours, isn't it, Colin?
That's one of mine, yeah. For some reason, most of my layouts are based around brewers. I can't think why.
A popular subject, isn't it?
Yeah. I keep popping into Weatherspoons, make sure that's all okay still.
And of course, there's another one of Bishop Lane Brewery. Now I understand you set yourself little targets to try and ways to move wagons around, a sort of a throw of dice. Tell us about that then, Colin.
Yeah, well, I didn't invent this by a long shot. I've sort of borrowed it and been allowed to borrow it from a good friend of mine called Dave Tailby, who's builds micro layouts in sort of EM gauge, although he has seen the light and he has built at least one O gauge layout, so we're getting him converted.
He's also on here as well, Colin. So
is he there? Oh, hello, mate. Are you all right, are you?
I'm fine. I better mute myself, else Tony will lose his temper with me.
Well, you probably, Dave will be better explaining this as his invention, which he allowed me to sort of use. He invented it for his layout called Cannon's Lane Scrapyard, which was a 00 layout. I replicated that with the photos you just shown, and I called mine Bishop's Lane Brewery, so we keep the clerical sort of inference. But what you do is you have 5 wagons on the layout, 2 in the fiddle yard and 3 on the layout itself. You choose 3 points. I think the Americans call them spots, I think, and they're shunting. But 3 places where wagons are positioned. And if you have 5 wagons, there can only be 6 sort of permutations. So using a dice is absolutely ideal. So you throw the dice, and whichever number comes up indicates where wagon 1 will go to, and then where wagon 2 will go to. The good thing about this is you don't actually mark the 3 points on your layout. So if you've done it once and you want to change your 3 points where they're going to shunt, you can do. So it's like doing a different layout. But that was Dave's idea. It works well certainly with most of my layouts. I can't use it on all of them because I can't get 5 wagons on some of them. But that's what I use, and it's very good. I find it very good indeed. Keeps me amused, and I'm quite happy to do it. So thanks for that, Dave.
Thank you. Someone's just asked, any plans for Brunel's broad gauge layout?
Not from me.
I think that's Bob Harper used to do that sort of thing, didn't he?
Yeah.
No, I'm not planning on doing a broad gauge.
My computer's run out of steam again, so it won't show the next picture for some reason. Oh, here it comes. So we've got Doc Green. That's another one of your layouts, isn't it?
Yeah. Just incidentally, where I mentioned about putting, you can just see the pit behind the pub there. That's done with longitudinal Pico plastic sleepers and their separate plastic chairs, and that seemed to work out okay. There's another pit. there's another pit under the pug. The ash pit is under the pug, and the inspection pit is that one you can see.
Yes, you can see the inspection pit on that one, can't you?
Yeah, that's under the pecket. Yeah.
Yes, Foxbile Brewery.
Yeah.
Another brewery.
Well, yes, yeah.
You can clearly see that they're made of box files, or are they Foxbiles?
Yes, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, that came about really because several years ago now, there were several articles in the Model Railway Press about different places you can build a layout, and one of them was on box files, and there were several 00 ones done, and somebody put in one of the magazines that they felt that 00 was the largest sort of gauge you could use in a box file layout, and I thought, well, I don't know, let's see what we can do. And in a mad panic, and I don't know, it must have been high summer or something, the sun got to the back of my head, and this is what we did. And it started off really just with messing about with, again, I think that was old River Rossi tracking. Well, it is old River Rossi tracking that, and it just developed from there, and we just wired it up, and that's been quite popular on the exhibition circuit, believe it or not. But at least it causes a laugh, and it's a talking point, and people have a chat, and there we are.
And then we've got Ledson Street.
Yeah. Somebody else who's watching this tonight now owns that. I sort of exhausted really what I wanted to do with it, and so that's moved on. But the new owner is now listening in. But yes, that was one of my first micro layouts. Really, that's the one with the turnout on it. That's with a scratch built track, which is continuous check rail all the way through. 3-foot radius point on that, and there we are.
Yeah, but that seems to be a bigger layout than the Foxbile. It's a bit of a better close-up view there.
That's Ledson Street again, yeah.
Yeah.
And most of my layouts that you see in photographs show sort of pre-nationalisation stock on it, but I've now sort of gone into the early 1950s, which is probably where I best remember when I started train spotting, so and that sort of thing. Things I remember now.
They're absolutely super. Somebody else came up with a question just then. Can you say anything about your sector plates and how they're built?
Yes. How they built, let's start from there. Very simply indeed. In fact, I use either a sector plate or a traverser. The sector plates I use now is normally I normally use Pico rail, Pico track for the layouts I build now. And for a sector plate, all I do really is to cut it to length, and I cement a piece of plastic card right down the forefoot to keep it rigid, because Pico track is flexible. So I make it solid, so I cement a piece of plastic card right down the middle, and that makes it nice and solid. All I do then is put a screw in the far sleeper right in the middle and make sure it swings round to meet all the tracks. Then I put wires, one to each side, the normal way, but I make sure that there's a loop on it so that it's not tight in any way, shape or form. And so far, that seems to be working for me. As far as the traverses are concerned, it's made out of a simple tray. The base of it is the same material as I made the baseboard. I screw on sides to make it rigid in the longitudinal fashion. Normally, probably what I've used to frame the baseboard with. And underneath, I just screw some more pieces of 2B1 just to act as a guide. In actual fact, I've got one on this layout. I can sort of show you. So if you look at the end, you can see the baseboard material there. These are just screwed on from underneath. Excuse my painting, from underneath there. And again, the guides that actually go in the framework of the baseboard itself. And again, this one's just got the most expensive bit on this one are the two handles from B&Q. I think they said about £1.50 they did. So that cut the wife's housekeeping down that week. And that really is as simple as that. They work, they glide by courtesy of the wife's furniture polish. The better quality furniture polish she buys, the easier it works. But that's this has got handle on both sides because I can operate that little layout from either front or back. And the track is just pinned down in the middle. I don't think you can see it from the light there, but you might just see it. And that's as easy as that. If there's any questions on that, or can elaborate in any way, shape or form, please ask. But they're just simple. I mean, I believe very much in the KISS principle when I do my modelling. And
what's the KISS principle then?
Huh?
What's the KISS principle?
Keep it simple, stupid.
I just wanted you to say that.
I have seen people use upcycle is the right word, drawer gliders from IKEA furniture, usually falls to bits after a few years, and if they're metal guides either side, they move quite sleekly actually, and provided you use one that's not too long or the right length, a pair of those.
Thomas, is that something similar to what you use then?
Yes, I just have a piece of Pico track with a piece of wood, the same thickness of the baseboard, piece of wood screwed underneath the baseboard that holds it at the right level, and there's a perfect slot which it locks in either side, and just a simple bolt so it can rotate. I keep it simple as well. When it doesn't need to be anything more complicated than that.
And I notice on the end you've got something to stop something running off the end.
Yes, I 3D printed it so that I could have more wagons on. It just gave me that little bit more clearance by making that peculiar shape. And it works quite well and it's very strong. And I have run a few engines into it and it hasn't broke.
Excellent. And I see Colin's got another piece.
Well, no, that's the sector plate. If you can see it.
Yeah, that's
there.
perfect.
Can't reach in there now.
Swings either
But
side.
that just swings back and forward. As easy as that.
That's even more simpler
Screw
than
up there. Copper glad sleeper in down the side to solder the wires onto. And down the bottom, if you can see it, there's just two more lengths of Pico sleeper just to act as stop blocks. It's a three lines on this one, so the middle one you have to guess yourself.
Colin, I see that on that one you've got something down running between the sleepers.
That's the plasticard. That's a piece of black plasticard.
Is that your re-railer?
Now that's the one to keep the flexible track rigid. That's just a piece of 10 thou black plasticard.
Right, so there's no base underneath that at all. It's
No
just
base on
the
that
track.
at all. That is just a baseboard underneath there.
Chris R has just mentioned that Intensio produce a laser cut cassettes that can be easily adapted for use as a sector plate or traverser if you want a kit version.
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting.
Somebody's asked, what is your layout called, Thomas? I believe it's called Wopload, isn't it?
It is Wopload, and it was just it's a name of a real station. It's slightly based on that station, and I simply chose it because I like the name. That's it.
Good enough reason as any. Yes. of course, Wopload and one of John's layouts, Colin's layouts, are going to appear in the next virtual show as well, aren't they?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you've got something to look forward to, seeing Wopload running in its full form. And which one is it? The Dunwich Tramway that's.
Yeah, you got the which was my first lockdown layout. That's my first sort of light railway type layout. I've always been wanting to build one, and lockdown forced me to do it. So you've got that video taken very poorly, I have to say, but I think your magicians have managed to do something with it.
Peter's an absolute marvel, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got a chap called Peter Reynolds that's on our events team, and he does all the uploading of the videos onto the Guild YouTube channel and cleaning them up and tidying up, and he's done a fantastic job stitching together bits of video to make all our videos in the next show. And he's done a really great job. I've got to thank him for that.
Incidentally, Tony, do we get a preview of it before the actual show day?
No.
No, all right. I just thought I'd ask.
I'll see what I can do.
Thank you.
Has anybody else got any questions for them? Oh yeah, is your sector plate demountable, Colin?
Yes, by taking a screw out, but I don't bother, any for sort of maintenance and that. It's only just a wood screw, really, of a suitable size, whatever's in my spares tin, really.
Right, come on, there must be somebody bursting with some questions. Is there anybody out there got any more questions?
One come up.
Somebody asked earlier on, which came first? Is it the design of the wagons and locos that attracted you to then build a layout around them? Or what is it with you, Colin? Is it the wagons and locos that you go for first and then build a layout around it? Or is it you just want to use the same wagons and locos on many different layouts?
I think about that one. As far as the wagon works was concerned, that was the only one I think that I wanted to replicate my sort of younger years, in Wolverton Works. I mean, there's no way that you could have sort of picked on any particular part of Wolverton Works. So I built the wagon works to sort of replicate what I knew about the wagon side of Wolverton Works, really. But the others I've made are sort of ideas that come into the head. As far as the wagons are concerned, I would like to get sort of a variety of wagons. As I said before, I like to try and get 9-foot wheelbase ones if I can in the BR type that would have run in the BR type early era. Although I do use the 10-foot wheelbase ones as well. I think if I see a loco I like, I either build it or buy it. And I must say these days it's nearly all buying. There's some lovely ready to run. I like industrial, I like light railway, so there's plenty to choose from there. And that really is it, I suppose.
What about you, Thomas?
I tend to just find locos I like and build the kits or ready to run. I mainly like LNER, hence the whole layout. But I recently bought an MS Pug simply because I've got a 5-inch gauge one and wanted one for the layout. It just depends what it is. If I like it, I purchase it. We are building narrow gauge locos specifically for the club layout, but that's just a different project entirely.
A question for Colin. Alan Rhodes is obviously studying your little models. Quite often you've got a lot of brick built buildings effectively surrounding your yards, haven't you?
Yeah, yeah.
He's really asking sort of technical questions. What sort of materials are you using to sort of represent the brickwork, and how do you reproduce the sort of mortar between the brick courses?
Yes.
That's a trade secret.
Yeah. No, not at all. That's more by luck than judgment sometimes. The buildings in the main, the vaccines, are normally Helgen or parts of Helgen engine sheds. I think over the years I've bought about 6 of these Helgen engine sheds and never built one yet. But they make sort of nice back scenes. The Leadsom Street Yard one and the box file one. They are from, I think that was another Danish firm. I can't remember the name of them now. But they produced an engine shed, a single road engine shed, and a sort of goods warehouse. That's all they produced, those two. But the brickwork on those was magnificent, but you can't get that anymore. As far as the colouring is concerned, what I do is I spray them with Halford's car paint. I give them a coat of primer for a start, grey primer. I then do a coat of black. I then do a coat of sort of oxide colour, the oxide colour they use, and then vigorously go over it with a very, very fine sandpaper. And you sort of remove some of the paint and leave the other colours there. Sometimes, if you're lucky, the original sort of grey you've put on stays between the mortar courses. But if that doesn't happen, then I'll give them a very quick spray of the grey primer colour again. And as soon as I've done each panel, I'll go over that again with the fine sandpaper. And I'm lucky, sometimes that goes in between the grooves. So there's nothing scientific about it. It is sort of a bit of luck, really. So that's what I do anyway. Yeah. I hope that answers the question.
Thanks, guys. It's very detailed.
Right. Somebody just mentioned that you can get baseboards for approximately £43 for a board, and a backboard approximately 1 metre long for micro layouts. I'm just trying to see where it's from. Oh, it's from Scale Modern Scenery. Do you use any of that stuff?
No, I was aware of this because I think if you look on YouTube on various micro layouts, there's one guy who promotes this quite a lot. It's nothing to do with the firm, I don't think. But I thought they were mainly for 00. I wasn't aware that they did anything for O gauge, but
a member of the Modular club I belong to uses them, and they work quite well. I don't think they're specifically for any gauge. I just think they're
right.
baseboards for a layout that you want to make. I quite like the woodwork, so I wouldn't use a kit. I would buy a bit of wood or scavenge a bit of wood and build it myself.
Well, I think I'm the same, Thomas, really. I'll get the stuff I've got by me. I've still got 1 or 2 bits of old notice board, and occasionally I'll pull a bit out and think, what the hell can I put on this? And then we get another layout. But I don't tell her downstairs, you see. That's the thing. It's not till it's done.
Thomas, earlier on you mentioned that you used a Raspberry Pi in your control systems. How complicated was it to add the Raspberry Pi for servo operation? Chris is asking.
The Raspberry Pi itself isn't directly controlling the servers. The servers are controlled by a ESU server point controller, which can operate 4 points. So I need to add another point to make use of it. All the Raspberry Pi is doing is running the software JMRI. It's just a computer. That's all it is. A cheap computer. Although I did go for the slightly more expensive RAM, which was a 4 gig RAM version, because the scripts for the crane, it couldn't, the basic model couldn't process it quick enough.
Okay.
So the Raspberry Pi itself doesn't control anything specifically. It's the software itself that controls the layout.
Right. So you said it's for the JMRI, is that right?
Yeah, the JMRI program.
What is JMRI?
It is a free Java-based railway operation. You can program locos. You can make layout plans, which I showed earlier on my phone. It's just a way of making a mimic board that you do with, point switches or buttons or levers, etc., but just doing it on a digital screen. So it sounds complicated, but it's just a diagram essentially. But you can do clever things with it. It depends how much you want to use and fiddle around with it. I don't know half of the program myself. I've only touched the surface of what you can do with it.
I know that some of your other club members also use it for their layouts, like John, for instance.
We the Bowwaters paper mill layout, which we're doing, is operated the entire same way, and it's just using the Raspberry Pi as a cheap computer.
Now, you've mentioned as we've gone along about the use of 3-link couplings on your layouts. Have you thought of using any sort of automatic couplings, either of you?
You going, Thomas?
I do have thoughts on this, actually, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead, Thomas, please.
I have considered using auto couplings, and I've had a member of the Gajo Guild come up to me, and I can't think of his name at the minute. He usually sits on the guild stand at shows. Lovely chap, always speak to him. And he has successfully created a server which automatically couples, and I want to see how he's done it before I commit to it. From what I understand, each wagon has a server at one end with a linkage that lifts the coupling up and then lowers it down once you've gone near. I think it can be quite fiddly to set up to work correctly, and I'm not too sure how it would work on radiuses, because it would only go to a fixed point. It might work. I'm sure it does, but I think it would be rather fiddly to set up to work perfectly. And also, locos would be a challenge to fit it in, because obviously for me, I have sound decoders and capacitors and stay alives in them, and space gets very tight, or in speakers. So I would like to do more research in it before committing to it.
What about you, Colin?
No, I see who's raised this question. I know he's a Dingham couplings fan, aren't you, John? No, I will stick to my 3-link couplings, although I have to say, Mrs. French, when she operates, will love to have automatic couplings. This is why she operates the layouts at exhibitions more than I do, because she needs to practice on 3-link couplings.
All right. Well, Torsten Freyer is saying that he's going to go to Dingham couplings in future. He's made some successful tests with 2 wagons and 1 loco, and he's very satisfied with them.
Yeah.
And I must say, I have seen lots of layouts with Dingham couplings which have operated very successfully. Nevertheless, for myself, I've gone back from using Spratt and Winkle automatic couplings back to 3 links. Yeah.
I think it's everyone has their own preference, don't they? Their own personal choice, isn't it?
Yes, it's everyone's own personal choice. For me, 3-link just looks more realistic. I never liked the Hornby trains with the couplings. It always ruined it for me back when I was little.
Yeah, I agree.
Can I just interrupt?
Who's this, please?
It's Malcolm Goodger from St Neots Modular Railway Club.
Hello, Malcolm.
Oh, hello, Malcolm.
Hello, lads, how you doing?
All right, my ducky, you?
Yeah, fine, thanks. Just going on what Thomas was saying about scale seams paper cladding for buildings. I use it on my O-gauge layout. I'm building one for the first time ever, O-gauge layout. I've just got shoehorned into it by John. But what I do, I download the Scale Scenes website. Their builder's yard has loads of different items on it. If you take the download 00 paper brickwork, you make one payment, and on that payment you can click.
We've lost you.
I think we've lost
It's
it.
all right, we just had some banging out noise outside. You can download as many times you like, so it's double O gauge. But if you enlarge it on your printer by approximately 180%, you get to O gauge.
Oh,
And then you can then apply that to your woodwork or whatever with the
oh well.
PVADs. It seems to work quite well. It will be seen on the market on the circuit sometime, but I too have got a micro layer. There's no bigger than 6 foot long.
Well, thank you for that, Malcolm.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Rob Porter's actually raised a question here. Which do you find most satisfying? Design, building, or operation of your layouts? Colin?
Well, I'll have to say all three really, but I think yeah, the design, I think. If you're creating something that's not been done before or seen before, I think probably designing it. And then hopefully it works out okay. As I said, if you move the bits of paper around and shunt the wagons before you even build a baseboard, yeah, so design I think probably is my most satisfying. Although I do like operating with Dave's, as I said before, method of shunting.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Thomas?
My favourite, well, what I find most satisfying is building. I really enjoy doing the scenics of layouts. I really enjoy the challenge of making motion into the layout. I do enjoy operating. I do enjoy designing, but it's the building that I love and enjoy now.
Mm-hmm. Jeff, I believe you were going to say something there.
No, don't think so.
Oh, I thought you were raising your hand.
I enjoy running my trains. Yeah, I like them going round and round my head with the camera.
If your layouts were different sizes from your current ones, would that make any difference to your preference?
Yes, it would for me, because I'm very, very lucky indeed, in so much that when before this terrible thing that we're going through now started, on a monthly basis, I was able to go to my friend Barry Walls and operate his Wallsy layout. That is some bit different to my layouts. And I have to say, I did enjoy the particular part of the layout I was operating. I did enjoy the operation of it very much indeed.
Well, thank you. What about you, Thomas?
I personally don't enjoy running trains around much. If I had a bigger layout, it would be an end-to-end, and that's what I enjoyed, the shunting. I don't think if I had a bigger layout, I'd enjoy it more. I still like the building side more.
Okay. Well, I'd like to say thank you to the both of you for coming on this evening. Before we go, I do have a few things to share with people. So I'm going to share my screen now again and see if this works. Hopefully, eventually, very soon. Today will be good. Right. So obviously, I have made mention of a show that's coming up, the new virtual show, which is on the 6th. Starts at 10 o'clock in the morning, goes through to around about 4:30, I believe. And eventually I'll be able to show you a slide with it all on. How about that?
It's
Tell you all
9:30 in
about-
the morning. It's 9:30.
9:30 in the morning. It's
You
even
come on
early.
early,
My
yes.
goodness, I have to get myself out of bed earlier. Yes, 9:30 in the morning on Saturday, the 6th of November. And whilst the show actually is available to all of us right through the month, right to the end of November, there's loads of live demonstrations, interviews, and things like that going on through the day. And you'll be able to see all that for free again. And it's free for members and free for non-members.
Yep.
And I'm going to try and get the next page. One of the things that we've looked at is to try how we can manage to coax people into joining the guild. And what we've decided to do is a try before you buy sort of thing. This is what we're calling it, where you can have a month's free trial of the benefits of being a member without actually being a member. At the end of the month, you can then decide whether you're going to subscribe or not. And that's going to start at the show. So if anybody's not a member here today and they're thinking about it, go to the show and start the try before you buy. And then you can have a month's free use of the forum and all the guild facilities before you make a decision whether you want to pay your subscriptions. Of course, in the coming year, we've got the 3 shows are back live. First one being at Kettering in the spring on the 5th of March, followed up by the summer show at Doncaster, which has moved a week because of the Jubilee celebration. So it's on the 11th of June, the second weekend. Then, of course, brand new Guildex at Stafford, a new venue. We'll see how that goes. And we're looking forward to it. Those that haven't actually joined, pays £2 a time. We've had 10 sessions this year, another session coming up. That'll be £22. It's only £28 to join. So why not join and get the benefits of being in the guild?
Okay.
It's £33 for overseas members because it costs a bit more to post the guild magazines there.
Yeah.
And I'd just like to say thank you again to Colin and Thomas and to everybody that's come this evening. It's been very much appreciated. Don't forget, these are monthly things, 26th of every month with the exception of December. We're not having any one on Boxing Day. So we'll see you again on the 26th of November. And there was supposed to be a slide to tell you all about it. What it is a couple of gentlemen going to come and tell us all about signalling, both the real life ones and how it can be applied to model railway layouts. So unless anybody's got anything else to say, I'm going to stop this sharing now. If anybody wants to unmute themselves to ask any questions, please do so. I understand that Mike Bissell might have a question. Mike, if you want to unmute yourself, go ahead, ask your question.
Hi guys, it's my first time on here. I spend about 4 months of the year in the UK, and I've now got a living situation there where I would need to go outdoors. I'm wondering if anybody's got any experience of Pico track being left outdoors all year round.
Yes, I have. Before I got back into my micro layouts, I did have a layout 12 in a 12-foot square shed, 3 sides with a branch line out into the garden. The garden line had Pico track and turnouts, and what I did, I pinned it down to the baseboard, which was covered in roofing felt. I ballasted it with chick grit, which is the medium I use, which was very, very cheap indeed, and sort of did the things. I edged it with the track with small square battens, I suppose. And then when the whole lot was done, I coated the whole lot with 2 coats of yacht varnish, and then quickly scraped off the top of the rail because it was, you know, for the electrical continuity. And that was out there for 8 years. And when I decided to convert the O-gauge garden layout to a 5-inch garden layout, that took me a hell of a job to get that track up. So there we are. It lasted certainly for 8 years without any problem.
And the turnouts,
I
you use the blade connections, or did you use separate connections for turnout wiring?
I put a micro switch underneath, just
Yeah, okay.
double do it sort of thing.
Oh, that's encouraging. Thank you. Because we've just bought a townhouse, which has got about a 14 to 16 foot square little terrace in the back. And that's where I'll be.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Colin.
I can go further than that. 20 years my track has been down, Pecco track. It's fine. But I haven't pinned it down. I've just glued it down.
Right.
So it's and using, so I used to initially use PVA with with the ballast to hold it in place, and then you can get nice graduated curves and cant on it if you're careful. And now use silicon bonding resin, which you can get from building merchants, and that just put down neat, and it'll just hold it in place. It's fantastic.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for that. Okay. Now, apparently there's a thread on the Gage O'Gill forum. Rob Porter's brought this to our attention, mentioning in passing that Dingham business may have been closed. That's the Dingham couplings owing to ill health.
Oh.
I'm not able to look at that forum at the moment, but maybe somebody else might have some more knowledge of this. Does anybody know anything about that?
No, I don't, Tony. It's a very bad news, that is, in my opinion. Don't get me wrong.
Absolutely. Well, probably have to look into that a little further.
Yeah, I'll have a look at it later.
Is there anybody else got any questions, wants to come online and ask or unmute?
Yes, I would like to ask a question, particularly aimed at Colin.
Can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, Keith Gowan.
Oh, yeah. Hello, Keith. Thank you very much.
I just wanted to ask Colin, is there a reason why you build small layouts? And I wonder if it's done because of the weight or transport that you incur going to the exhibitions.
You know the answer to this, Keith. I'm very generous to my wife. I always make a baseboard that she can carry.
That's what I thought the answer would be, Colin.
Yeah. Every part of the baseboard building process, I'll get her to test it to make sure she can carry it.
That's a caring husband.
I am. I amaze myself at times.
Are we still recording this, by the way?
We are still recording, yes. Yes.
I didn't mean that, my dear.
Yes. Is there anybody else wants to ask Colin or Thomas any questions about their layouts?
I'd just like to ask quickly, Colin, what's this new thing, this Dunwich tramway you've come up with then? I've seen pictures, but I know no more about it. I expect I'll with it.
Can you introduce yourself, please? Because
sorry, yeah, it's Dave Tailby.
Yes, thank you, Dave. Colin.
Yes, Dave. Well, I wish I knew, really. You know how the first lockdown affected all of us? Well, this is the effect. I've always wanted to build, I think we've spoken about this before, I've always wanted to build sort of a light railway, and never got round to it. I managed to, again, through the guild, bring them by, managed to get a four-wheel coach that I rather like, and a friend of mine, I expected it to be on here tonight, but I don't think he is, stopped at that for me. And I thought, well, what can I get in 4 foot? Which is my sort of maximum footprint these days. And I came up with this little light railway based, I think, mainly on Canterbury Road at Wingham, which was on the East Kent Railway, and the operation of that there. And I thought, well, I don't want it based there, so I'll base it local. Well, all the seaside resorts in Suffolk, most of the bigger ones, had branch lines to them of one shape or another, except for Dunwich, which in the Middle Ages was a very, very important town. So I thought, well, at least it can have as a tramway. So That's how it came about. And have a look at the video, the show, and let us know what you think, because
I will do, yeah.
Tongue-in-cheek sort of thing, really. But there we are.
Am I to assume then, from all your other prototypes, the only one you haven't touched yet, I think, is Wissington. Will you be having a bang at that?
You have, in a sense of the world, because Skull, although that was a real railway, the operation of it is very much sort of Wissington sort of based.
Ah, I'm with you. I didn't realise that, but excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Alex, have you been trying to come in with a question?
No, I don't have a question. I would say it's very interesting story about the of the layout designs. It's very interesting. I'm very impressed with it. Thanks for a good story, you two. It's very informative.
I'm glad you've enjoyed it.
Yes, you're very welcome.
Thank you. Don't
Thank you for
forget,
having us.
and if anybody wants to leave any feedback, they can either send it to me or to Jackie. Our contact details are on the membership database, on the contacts page of the Guild website, and if you can do so anytime you like. And I hope you've all enjoyed this evening. If there's any other questions.
Yes, please, Tony.
Yes, can you identify yourself, please?
Alan Rhodes.
Thank you, Alan. Yes, go ahead.
This is basically about the Dingham couplings. I've just had a quick look around, and it is on the Guild forum, but then there's a reference to RM Web, which reads as follows from somebody called Blue Stag from Burbank, California. He is saying Tony Shaw's found it necessary to close down the business abruptly due to ill health. He chased an order, and so he rang this morning, and his wife answered telling him the business is shut down. He had talked to him about passing on the business, which he was willing to do. I advised him to contact the Gageo Guild to find a new manufacturer, and apparently someone has met with him yesterday on the very subject.
Oh, that's excellent news then. Thank you very much for that.
Okay.
That's super. So we're probably seeing a new management then shortly. That's great. All right. Well, thank you very much again for attending. Don't miss the show.
Yeah.
Do join the Guild if you're not already a member. And don't forget, 26th of November, Peter Reynolds and another gentleman, and I do apologise because I've forgotten his name, is going to talk about signalling in real life and on layouts. And you can book your session as of tomorrow. Should be live on the Guild website tomorrow to be able to book your session. So do that, and I'll look forward to seeing you again this time next month.
Yeah.
Wishing you all well. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you.
Colin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you
Bye.
very much.
Thank you
Bye,
very
Colin.
much. All right, Colin. Give my regards to Margie, Colin.
Will do with that. Yeah.
Take
All
care,
right.
Colin.
Thank you,
Bye.
guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye. Cheers.